Burrell, the Voter Services Chair for the League of Women Voters. We are the ones who have organized, along with the Oak Island officials, tonight's event. The League is very pleased to do this. This is the 5th one we've done around Brunswick County this month, this year. The League is very concerned with civic engagement, voter participation, and we are definitely nonpartisan, although these elections are nonpartisan, so it's not a particular problem. Let me just say that we first will have the 2 mayor candidates speak, and the format for both the mayor candidates and for the council candidates is there will be no introduction. We'll just go right to the questions, and each candidate will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer each question. We have a timer here, so all the candidates can see the time, and after 1 minute and 15 seconds, it will beep. So they'll have to, John will have to tell them they have to quit. Then all the candidates will also have 2 minutes for a summary statement at the end, so you can learn a little bit more about the candidates. We've been passing out our vote411.org little cards, and we really encourage you to go online to vote411.org. It's a statewide project of the League of Women Voters where we ask every single candidate for all the different elections across the state to give them your picture, some video if you want to, and then there's several questions that they ask the candidates, so you can learn more about the candidates. You can tell your friends who weren't here to go online, because I will say in Oak Island, every single one of the candidates has responded. So it's really terrific, and we appreciate that, and it's great information. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Evans, who will be our moderator tonight, who's come here from WECT-TV and has done this before and is wonderful. And so just follow along with him. Thank you.
All right, Barbara, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our candidates for the mayoral forum this evening. Sin Brochure and Ken Thomas. Please give them a round of applause. You can take your seats, if you would. We do have a timer up front. Both of the candidates should be able to see. It will blink when there's 10 seconds left, and then you'll hear this sound. Okay? I could barely hear it. I hope you're hearing better than me. And as I told you a few moments ago, I'm not going to cut you off mid-sentence at 1:15 or 2 minutes. But I'm not going to let you go off on another tangent and another thought process either. I don't think it's fair to cut somebody off mid-sentence, but I don't want you taking too much more time after that is over. It's going to be easy in this one as opposed to the city council, town council forum, because I'm just going to go first answer, response, back and forth. Okay, any questions for either one of you?
I'm good.
Okay, all right, audience, thanks again for being here. And we're going to go right to the questions. And Sin Brochure, I'm going to have you respond first to the first question, ma'am.
Somehow I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, well, B stands B before T.
I know. I got you.
If you were asked by a newcomer to Oak Island what the job and responsibilities of mayor are, how would you respond? 1 minute, 15 seconds.
My responsibility as mayor is pretty cut and dry. I'm a consensus builder and try to be the level head. I don't pick a side, and I build consensus amongst my council or you guys' council, and just try to keep a meeting orderly and productive. And so far, I think we've done pretty good with that. We've accomplished a lot in 3 years.
Thank you, ma'am.
In 4 years almost.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Thomas, I'm going to ask you 75 seconds, sir. If you were asked by a newcomer to Oak Island what the job and responsibilities of the mayor are, how would you respond?
I would say as a leader, town council does the voting, but as a leader, transparency to get the message out, to interact with the residents of the island and make sure they understand everything that's going on, answer any question they got, and just keep them informed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Stand by 1 second. Point this up.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Thomas, I'm going to have you respond first to the next question, and it's about capital improvements for Oak Island. What do you see as the most immediate capital improvement project that is needed, and what are your suggestions on how to pay for these improvements?
Well, one, we in pretty good shape here on that. I think we need to spend a little bit more on the recreational building. I think it's getting a little beat down. We got everything else you can name. We actually, things we need to be working on is some of our stormwater problems, street radiuses, and that hasn't been well addressed here lately. As far as capital improvements, no.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Brochure, I'm going to ask you to respond, ma'am. What do you see as the most immediate capital improvement projects that are needed in Oak Island, and what are your suggestions on how to pay for these improvements?
The most immediate capital improvements, and I'm going to include the streets, side streets. And we are always looking to find money for our sand and our beaches. That's always one of the main things. But right now, I think the main thing, and in the future going forward, I think, as Mr. Thomas said, that we do need to look, once we get our debt service paid off, which will be next year, we can look at maybe improving some of our things like the rec center and enhancing things like that for the citizens. But right now, I think it's the thing we had the most complaints about is the side streets. And we've saved up, and we've had studies done. We've put it in priority. We've done all we can do. We had to test some of the streets first to make sure that we're not wasting our money like's been done in the past. And we repair them, and they didn't work. Next 2 months later, you got a speed bump again. And the ones we've recently done look really good, and I'm really proud of them. So. And how would we pay for that? We've started, when we first became council and I became mayor in 2016, we started putting things in our budget in different departments so we could build a fund that would help support future plans and future maintenance.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'm going to ask you to stay right there, Ms. Brochure, to respond first to the next question. Can everybody hear okay in the audience? Okay, just want to make sure. Hurricanes and other severe weather events have been and will continue to be major problems for the Oak Island area and really the entire coastline. What is the mayor's role in preparing for and reacting to events like that?
The mayor's role is to make sure that you keep your city safe so your citizens will have somewhere to come home to, that your infrastructure is protected, that the staff is doing everything that they normally do, and all is well when we start meeting. I don't know how many people know how it's done. I didn't know when I ran for mayor, but luckily or unluckily for me, I was here the first year we'd had a hurricane in 17 years, and that was Matthew. And we went about 7 days before the hurricane was predicted to hit. We went into emergency meetings and had calls every day from the county. Staff started gearing up. It's amazing to see how our staff can gear up for that. It's like flipping a switch. I'm sorry, John, what was the other part of that question?
And what is the mayor's role in preparing for and reacting
to such
events?
Just being available to your staff and to your public and doing the best you can to make sure your island's safe. That's my role.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I'm pretty experienced after 3 hurricanes in 4 years. and we kept the island safe.
Mr. Thomas, hurricanes and other severe weather events will continue to be a major problem for the Oak Island area. What is the mayor's role in preparing for and reacting to such events?
One is to make sure that the town staff, who does a pretty good job of getting things ready, prepared for a hurricane. One of the biggest failures we've had is what to do after a hurricane. We don't need to trap people off the island. We need to get them back, help them as soon as it's safe, health and safety first, but to come back to the island. And we've failed in that mission and trapped people off that should have been able to come back over the bridge, get their medicine, get their food, get their toiletries, and that kind of thing. And that's where we have really got to improve. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thomas, I'm going to ask you for the first response to the next question. During the summer months, on any given day, thousands of people visit Oak Island. These visitors are short and long-term renters and also day trippers. What are your plans for town parking in the future, and specifically beach parking? And you're asked to address paid parking, resident decals, and handicap parking.
First of all, we got to have the handicap decals. That's right off the bat. But we only have 1,100 parking spaces. We got 7,100 taxpayers. We got 3,000 more that come in on property. The minute we start putting up parking meters, you're going to have 10,000 people applying for town decals. With 1,100 spaces, no way as a businessman financially can you make it come out. It will be a tax. It will be a losing proposition, and the only way you're going to turn a profit on parking meters is to take the town decals away, which I definitely do not want to do. There is no other way. We need to move on to 1,500. My committee has found 160 in a 4-hour search. I think we go to 1,500. That has got to be worked out. But right now, with 1,100 parking spaces, you do the math and you're trying to pay for it in a 90-day summer heat period. It ain't going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Brochure, during the summer months, any given day, thousands of people visit Oak Island. These are short and long-term renters and day trippers. What are your plans for town parking in the future, specifically beach parking? And they ask you to address paid parking, resident decals, and handicap parking.
Well, the parking issue has always been an issue and always will be an issue. We have identified, as Mr. Thomas said, 1,100 parking spaces, and that's on any given day you're going to have to look for a parking space. We have also, as council, agreed to up the residents' decals for our street ends, so we're going to double that. I think it was at least doubled. So more of the town people will have a place to park if they get there early. What we find out is that people are willing to pay $50 to park when it's busy on Oak Island. And yes, it's a problem. I'm not sure that there's a solution. I in no way think that paid parking is the solution. In fact, the logistics for paid parking is, we could not figure out, or I couldn't figure out in my head how you can make that work when you have citizens and everybody can buy a parking sticker, and you promise the citizens they're not going to pay, then they need to have somewhere to park. And so that's my stance on that. I don't know if it'll come back up. That's council's decision, but it went away because in the council's head we could not understand how you could make it all work logistically.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to ask you for the first response to the next question, Ms. Brochure.
I keep forgetting that.
In September of 2021, the town will make its last debt payment of the approximately $1.6 million to build the fire, police, and town hall buildings. What are your plans with regards to that additional money that will be available then?
I don't think we have any plans. We're just excited about being able to pay it off about 2 years early, and we did that because we have paid more every year. This particular council is very conservative, and we like building our funds. So when we have an emergency like the hurricanes, which we've had 3 of, we have money in the bank that we don't have to borrow or worry about where the repairs or the upkeep or the cleaning is going to come from. That's why we've been so successful getting us back to normal. The funds that you're referring to, that's where the capital improvements come in. My goal would like to see, like you said, a new recreational complex. That's the one thing we are missing that's been neglected for many years because we've been in a very tight budget, and this council and the mayor agree that we all hold tight on our funds. But I do think that that's something this community could use, and I think it's needed. And we have a growing population of retirees, and they like to stay young, healthy, and involved. So that's what I would like to see. That's just one of my things. But you can go to Oak Island 2020 and see all of our visions if you want to take time.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Thomas, in September of 2021, the town will make its last debt payment of of approximately $1.6 million to build the fire, police, and town hall buildings. What are your plans with regards to that additional money that will be available then?
I think we need to address our debt issue. I'm old enough and wise enough. I buy what I want, but I make sure I don't want what I can't pay for. And we seem to have that problem. We have a serious debt problem. We need to work on it. We have more debt per resident than any beach town in the state of North Carolina. And we have got to address that debt, and we got to curb our appetite for all the little things that we think we want. When we at that point, you got to do something about it. And by having some of these debts paid off, it will help with the other debts we have. We sincerely need to work on these debts. Thank you.
Please, sir, stay there. I'm going to have you respond first to the next question. There are two aspects to code enforcement. One encompasses building development codes. The second is enforcement of town ordinances. Residents have expressed concern that the town is not doing a strong job with either one. The question, what is your assessment of the job the town is doing regarding code enforcement in both areas?
I think we could do a lot more about it. The rules seem to be so unclear that even when town council has a meeting, it's unclear. It's unclear what to do. I think that the town staff needs to beef up their rules, get them laid out, cross the T's, dot the I's, and say exactly what the rules are. You go out where they're building houses and stuff, and it seems everywhere you go, it's a little different. Well, exemptions, and that kind of thing. And being I'm not in the code enforcement every day, I'm not that prepared to answer that, but I'm learning more about it, and I'm not seeing us follow the same pattern. Seems like every new development, we handle it differently, and I don't understand why. So maybe we're not doing too good a job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Brochure, residents have expressed concern that the town is not doing a strong job with either aspect to code enforcement. What is your assessment of the job the town is doing regarding code enforcement in both areas?
I'm going to assume that your question is regarding the ordinances, and the main one is the right-of-way ordinance. This is the first time I've ever seen council really be aggressive at enforcing the right-of-way and enforcing the code enforcement. I'm not addressing the building code for the builders because I think the question is more on the ordinance question. I don't know. I guess I don't understand the question or why the citizen's concerned, because we get the total opposite in our emails and phone calls that we have enforced them too much. So I disagree with that statement. I think we can always do better. We've taken a slow approach, so when people have things that they've had in their right-of-ways for years and years and years, we've given them time to get used to the idea that they never should have been there and that the code was violated when they put them there. And it's not a hidden fact. It's been ordinances. I've been here since 2007, and I knew the ordinance, and when we built our house, I knew what the ordinances were then. I knew what I could and I couldn't put in the right-of-way. We are going to enforce them. We've started enforcing them, but we're not going to destroy people's property until we can get it, and we'll pick our battles.
Okay. Ms. Brochure, next question to you.
I do that every time. Sorry, guys. Sorry, John.
We're almost done, I promise. What ideas or plans do you have for the town's pier complex?
What plans we have for the pier complex? Well,
ideas or plans do you have for the town's pier complex?
Okay, well, they're pretty evident. I mean, all you have to do is go over and see what this council has achieved and accomplished. It was not easy getting grant money and developing a pier and not taking any from the taxpayers or not even taking donations for our pier being rebuilt. I'm very proud of the pier. I love it. I think it gives to our town. Some people may disagree, and I respect that. The complex, the restaurant's booming. The fishing pier is is really starting to pick up now that we have it finished and folks can get out there. It's been packed all week, and this is off-season. During season, it was observation, it was packed every year, and what a wonderful thing for our community to be able to be proud of. And it adds to our environment, it adds to our flair, it makes us who we are. Pretty much what you see is what I hope continues. It will continue to grow in popularity, and it'll be something that the residents can enjoy as long as, also as our visitors do. And actually, I do see as many residents out there as I do visitors, so I hope everybody's enjoying it too.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Thomas, what ideas or plans do you have for the town's pier complex?
I love the pier. Now, let's tell it the way it is. It's a money pit. It's a legal liability. We have town employees selling beer, and I love a good beer. But at the liability, get your head straight. Somebody gonna get hurt. It's gonna be a $100 million lawsuit. Let's lease it out like we did before Hurricane Matthew. Everything was great. Let private enterprise sell the beer. Let's collect our lease, and let's do it. It's done nowhere else in North Carolina, so we're the only ones doing it. We're doing something wrong. And if you're considering the pier complex, is it including the 801 Center?
You want to address it? You have the time.
Yes. Another money pit. Unbelievable. They chunk money down it. Unbelievable. There's people that want to lease it. Goodness gracious, let them lease it. Let's stop that money just going away. It's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. Let's lease it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Thomas, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question. Do you believe that Oak Island has a shortage of affordable housing and also affordable workforce housing? And what ideas or suggestions do you have to lessen these problems?
The answer to both is yes, and it always will be. We are a beach town. People fly in with the jets over here at the jet port, $40 million jets. I'm happy that it maintains the value of our property. What we pay for property here, you're not going to be the average worker. We will always, people will have to come from across the bridge for a workforce. And that's just life at a beach town. I don't know how you change it. Houses costing what they cost and all. Normal average worker will never be able to afford them. He will have to drive Oak Island every day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Brochure, do you believe Oak Island has a shortage of affordable housing and affordable workforce housing? What ideas or suggestions do you have to lessen these problems?
I have no doubt that we have a need for affordable housing on Oak Island. We are, as Mr. Thomas said, a beach community. We're a coastal community. The property is very expensive, although we're the cheapest of any of the coastal towns that we have right now. But you're not going to have an investor that'll come in and build affordable housings. We have a minimum of 500 square foot. You can build a 500 square foot on Oak Island, but who's going to build a 500 square foot when you're going to have to buy a $40,000 to $50,000, $60,000 lot? It's upside down in numbers. With that said, I would love nothing more than to be able for my children to afford a home here, even if it's on the other side of the bridge. The problem is property on the other side of the bridge is almost as expensive as the property in Oak Island. We're a retirement, becoming more and more of a retirement community. We're a coastal tourist town, and it's getting more popular. This is a problem that's all over the United States. This is not rare to Oak Island. And we may have to do sometimes like the Outer Banks does. They go overseas, they go to Bahamas, they go somewhere and they get workers part-time, 6 months out of the year, send them back, bring another group over for 6 months, send them back. So it's a problem, and I wish there was an answer for it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The two candidates, that ends the list of questions that we have. And now each one of you will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Ms. Brochure, it is your turn to go first. So for her closing statement this evening, We have mayoral candidate Sin Brochure. Ms. Brochure, 2 minutes.
Thank you, John. Most of you know me. It is what it is. You've seen what we've accomplished and what I have helped accomplish with this council. I'm an open book. I'm accessible. Ask anybody that's ever tried to call me. My mobile number is on the website, and if there's a solution, I'll help you. And if I can't help you, I will let you know, and I'll try to find someone that can. I ask for your vote, and I think the key to this election this year is going to be the people getting out and vote. And I'd love to see everybody in this room show up at polls on the November 5th, Tuesday. Excuse me, I'm starting to get a sore throat. I love Oak Island. Anybody that knows me knows how I feel about the island, and I went back and looked at all my. Sorry?
Excuse me, the clock. Well, she's got it going now.
She's good. I'm keeping track.
Oh,
She's fine.
Thank you for watching out for me, Mr. Thomas. I'll try to repay the favor. Anyway, now I've done lost my train of thought.
You're good. You have
Is that
plenty
a
of time.
political ploy?
No, it didn't move it.
You never know.
Keep going. I'll wrap you when you.
I do love Oak Island. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. I ran for office in 2015. I went back and looked at all my ads I had run in 2015. Everything I promised we have accomplished in Oak Island. And I didn't even know what I was promising, to be quite frank with you. I was just running for mayor. But we've not only accomplished what I did, what I thought we could accomplish, we've went above and beyond. And I have meetings with mayors from southeastern Brunswick County, and they are just astonished on how well the council and Oak Island works together, what we've accomplished in 4 years and 3 hurricanes. And to be quite honest with you, I think there's no other council on earth like we've had for this 4 years, or you wouldn't see as much progress and the debt service being down and keeping the budget stable if we hadn't have had a good council, a good mayor, and a good group, a wonderful staff. There's no other staff like our staff. But basically, I ask for your vote, and if, go vote, and vote as if your future depends on it, because in this case it could. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brochure. Next, for his closing statement,
I'm joking. I'm joking, Mr. Thomas.
What moved?
we'll give him a little more than 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, mayoral candidate Ken Thomas. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. Happy to be here. My message is that things need to change, and they need to change now. I wake up determined every morning to try to make Oak Island the friendly beach town it used to be. I want transparency in the local government. I want things to go back and be the friendly beach town. As the mayor, I'm going to do what ain't been done in a long time. There will be a mayor meeting once a month where all the residents can address the mayor and any problems, any issues at this mayor's meeting you can bring up. And we got many problems. One is the debt that we discussed a minute ago. It is massive. We need to work on that. We need, as a businessman, 36 years and a problem solver, we can work on these issues about the parking, the sewer, returning after a hurricane, and that kind of thing. We do need to get out of private enterprise. It is dragging us down. We do need to lease out the 801 Center. I love the pier, but we need to lease it out to get away from the legal liabilities. The golf course at South Harbor, we need to lease it out. We're going to have it for a long, long time by legal contract. Let's find somebody that will improve it. They will make it profitable, and that won't be a finance on us no further. Let's get transparency as far as we can go, and that's why we're going to have a mayor's meeting every month to address your problems to the mayor. And it's blinking, so thank you.
Finished?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please give a hand to Sin Brochure and Ken Thomas.
Thank you guys for coming.
Okay, we're going to bring the council candidates up here. Give us about 5 minutes to get them set, and we'll begin 5 to 6 minutes from now. Thank you, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with our town council candidate forum.
Can everyone take your seats? We're going to get started.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you take your seats, please? We want to go ahead and get started with our town council forum. As you see, we have 6 candidates up here to take part in this forum. And what I have done is I have made it so that the same candidate doesn't always go first with every question. Same candidate doesn't always follow the same person. It will rotate for the 8 questions and then the closing statement to try to be as fair as we can to all of the candidates. Each one of them will get a chance to go first at least once, and then we will do the closing statement. Once again, 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer each of the questions, no opening statement, and then we'll have a 2-minute closing statement. So once again, if you can kindly keep your applause until the very end and let them know how much you appreciate them then. We're going to start with our first question, and candidate Sheila Bell is going to be the first responder to the first question. When your name starts with B, you can't be surprised, right? Go ahead if you want to go ahead and take up to the podium. I'll ask you the question when we get up there. Ms. Bell, the first question and your response, what would be your top priorities as a member of the town council?
For this election cycle, I think our top priorities would be figuring out how to do our repaving of our side streets, figuring out how we can continue the services such as our leaf and limb pickup with the growth that we've had. Hi. Figuring out how we're going to pay for our beach renourishment project, our FEMA project, and that's about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next candidate will be Charlie Blaylock. Mr. Blaylock, I ask you to respond to the same question, sir. What would be your top priorities as a member of the town council?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that I didn't know what I got myself into the last time I did this, and obviously not too bright. I'm doing it again. Anyway, I think one of the top priorities, and I've seen it over and over and over again, is communication. We need to communicate with each other. By each other, I mean the council and the people. You need to be able to go someplace and get an answer without having to figure out, what button to push or whatever. You need to have an easy, user-friendly system. The second thing is the right-of-way. We need to address the issues associated with the right-of-way. And as it was said before, one of the main problems is this hasn't been enforced in the past. We have a boat down here with a tree growing in it. It's obviously been there a while. So that's the kind of issues they have with the right-of-way. And, of course, beach is always an issue. How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? Well, it's a fact of life. We're going to have to figure out some way to do it, but we need to come together to do it. And that's one of the reasons that I want to have that communication system, so that you get the real information, not what Facebook tells you they think you need to know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next candidate to answer the first question, Nikki Cutler. Ms. Cutler, I ask you to respond, ma'am. What would be your top priorities as a member of town council?
The timer's not going down. That's why I didn't know if she was going to start it, and then I. Oh, okay. So, my name is Nikki Cutler. I think the top priority here is I want to redirect the focus of the town council away from what I consider the tourist industry. They've been focusing too much on that, and we need to focus it back on you, the public, and public service. The Public Works Department is in shambles. Their equipment is very old. We have laundry pickup every 2 months, if you're lucky. The roads are bumpy mess. They have been for 4 years. So I think that the focus has been too much on, we know what it's been a lot on. It's been on the event center, it's a wedding center. These kind of things are taking a priority over us. I think they are not what the town council needs to be doing. We have private industry that does that. I mean, we don't need to be running a restaurant. We don't need to be running a bar. What's next? A surf shop, a pet shop. I mean, it's out of control as far as that. And meanwhile, everything that we need is kind of being neglected. And that's what I want to refocus back on, is the general public and what you expect the council to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, for the response to the first question, Michael Defio. Mr. Defio, what would be your top priorities as a member of the town council?
Well, first off, I make a distinction between issues and projects. Issues are things that impact the residents, our town. Projects are things like beach nourishment, the streets, etc. The biggest priority, my top priority, and the biggest issue I think we're facing on Oak Island is our growth. We're growing. We're going to, in the next 3 to 5 years, we're projecting our population to double. And it's also been projected at the 2035 that our population is going to end up somewhere around 20,000 people. That's going to put an enormous amount of pressure on our town, our staff, our systems, our procedures. And I think the top priority we have is to take a step back, take a look, and see what changes we have to make to those things to make sure that we can operate on a very consistent and efficient manner going into the future. This issue is going to touch on all the projects that we're dealing. So we have to start working on this growth. We have to start planning for on this growth. Well, that's it. I'm out of time anyhow. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next up, candidate Dara Royal. Ms. Royal, what would be your top priorities as a member of town council?
First priority is providing basic services our residents need and deserve. When I say basic services, I'm talking about maintaining our streets, draining the stormwater, collecting yard debris, preparing, recovering from hurricanes, and code enforcement. The second thing is maintaining and operating our town facilities. We need to rebuild the rec center. We need to have a comprehensive 10-year capital improvement plan that we get on track, stay on track, budget for it every year. We also need to be looking at beach nourishment in a more conservative way. I think continue to do the periodic maintenance projects that we've been able to do in the past, continue to do those in the future with accommodations tax that we save, perhaps if we need to, with some assessments in the beach area, and match that with grants from the state coastal storm damage mitigation fund. We need to drop the sand tax and have a voter referendum for any financing plan on a $40 million FEMA engineered beach with $20 million beach nourishment every 6 years thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, for his response to the first question, candidate Jeff Weinkoff. Mr. Weinkoff, what would be your top priorities as a member of the town council?
There's quite a few. Over the last few years, we had to play a lot of catch up, getting our funds straight again. Our fund debt balance was way down. We maintained our infrastructure. We have got a hold on our sewer system. We properly fund our sewer. We properly fund all of our maintenance. We properly fund all our capital projects. We've got to tackle our roads. We got to evaluate our debris pickup and see if there's more debris pickup need to be done. We also need to look at our beach. I've made several trips to Raleigh. One job of a council person is go beg for money. I go to Raleigh with my mayor and my other council members. We go and we ask for money for our beaches to be able to keep them up for tourists to come in. Tourists is a big infrastructure in this town. The county brings in over $500 million a year from tourism. We get tax breaks from the county of $600 on our tax bill every year because of that tourism. But the county does not give us money back. It's all on our taxpayers. I made a promise when I came here to make sure that all the taxes stayed off the taxpayers. I've stuck with that promise, and now that we have money, we need to look at also our rec center, but we got to do it the smart way. I'm tired of borrowing money and having to pay back. We need to look at grants to be able to pay for these things, which we should have done in the past.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Royal, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question, if I may. And the question is, how would you propose to prepare the town's infrastructure for future growth?
We already have plans in place to prepare for that infrastructure in our comprehensive land use plan. So we need to pay attention to that plan rather than just putting it on the shelf and letting it collect dust. That lays out what our needs will be in the future. The capital improvement plan that I talked about earlier, we need to have a comprehensive plan that matches that future growth and development that's expected and outlined in our comprehensive land use plan. And we need to let that growth pay for itself. But with the proper planning and managing the resources we have and keeping an eye and keeping up with where we're going and looking at the data, we can accommodate future growth in a manner that will be good for all of us.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Cutler, I'm going to ask you to respond. How would you propose to prepare the town's infrastructure for future growth?
Thank you. We all know we're going to have future growth, and as Council Member Candidate Royal said, we do have a plan in place. Let's follow the plans that we have. We don't need to. I really get frustrated when I see more. Let's do consultations. Let's do this plan. Let's study this. Let's study that, and then we don't even follow through. Do you know how much these consultants cost? They cost a lot of money, and I know a former mayor who has enough plans in her garage, we could walk from here to Cuba. Can we please follow some of the plans that we have? And I think that that's what we need to do. So as far as future growth and how we have our infrastructure coming in place, we do have plans for that. We need to make it attractive for development, and the main way to do that is consistent ordinances and not changing them every 5 minutes for this, for that. That is unattractive to outside people coming in, and it's a source of amusement and actually a source of embarrassment. Every 5 minutes something's changing, so we don't want to present ourselves that way. We should be the leading town on the North Carolina coast because we are the biggest. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Bell, how would you propose to prepare the town's infrastructure for future growth?
It's pretty obvious I'm not the public speaker. I think that we do have some plans in place. Being on town council, I understand that things change at a rapid pace. We are constantly keeping up with what's going on. We're trying to plan for the future. We are now getting ready to have some growth across the bridge. We don't want in the future for there to be more people over there than there are over here. I think that we need to start planning for that. We don't want them, of course, making decisions on the mainland for how the island will be. We're going to have to address the parking issues. I am not for paid parking, nor have I ever been, but if you've ever rode down and tried to find parking spaces, you know that that's almost impossible. We have found some, we have made some extra parking lots that have alleviated some of the issues, and I'm beeping, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Weinkoff, how would you propose to prepare the town's infrastructure for future growth?
We've been planning all along. We've always had a set of plans together. If somebody builds, we look at everything and make sure our lift stations and vac stations are properly flowing. We have plenty of flow through the county. So the council's looked at all this. Like my other counselor said, a lot of the growth is going to come off this island. Pine Forest is a big development that's getting ready to come across and getting ready to get started. For 7 years, I've met with those developers, and I've watched them and watched how they planned, and they're adhering to what the town of Oak Island wants. They're going to be having a lot of green space, which everybody has always wanted green space, and the houses that everybody thinks they're going to put out there, it'll be half the number. It's going to be a beautiful, they're getting ready probably some in the next few months, make some announcements of what they're planning on doing. And what they're planning on doing, there's nothing like it on the southeast coast. So we properly planned. We meet with our public works, we meet with our town manager. When somebody has a project, the contractor's responsible for the utilities putting it in, not the town anymore. So we make sure we got everything lined up in place, because that's part of our job we have to do, is being overseeing. The oversight that this council has to do to make sure things are getting put in right and that everybody's following what they should be doing.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Defio, how would you propose to prepare the town's infrastructure for future growth?
Well, the town already has a strategic plan, and one of the legs on that strategic plan is infrastructure. I think what we don't have are plans. We don't have plans in place for all the infrastructure needs that we're facing in the future. And I think the first thing we need to do is to lay out those plans, collect information on them, find out how much they're going to cost, the duration, all those typical planning things, and then assign priorities to these things and operate from there. And I think it's very similar to what candidate Royal was talking about with a comprehensive plan. But we need to plan these things out before we start tackling them.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Blaylock, your response, please, to the question, how would you propose to prepare the town's infrastructure for future growth?
I agree with what all the rest of them said. There's nothing left when you're last, I guess. Anyway, my major concern is that to help with the infrastructure, that we work closer with our state and federal agencies also. That's one of the things that we need to do, because they got the money. And the UDO is a living document. It changes. It has to change. It has to adjust to the growth. It has to adjust to the different needs. And those needs will change based upon the demographic, and we are becoming a retirement community, and what follow through. Once you start it, see it to the end. If you can't, then tell us why you don't, why we can't see it. The conclusion, I guess you'd say. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Weinkauf, I'd like to ask you for the first response to the next question. Hurricanes and other severe weather events have been and will continue to be a major problem for Oak Island and the entire East Coast. The question is, what do you see as the council's role in preparing for and reacting to these events?
The main council's role is to make sure the town's prepared. Make sure the citizens in the town are communicated with, so they know where they're staying when they go off the island. I know there's been confusion in the past about how to get back on the island. This last year, the council and our town management staff put together a plan that's going to be simplified, easy for everybody to follow. So if somebody does go off the island, you'll have like a permit to come back on the island. It'll list who's in your household, who's staying with you. If there's a contractor that needs to come to your work, you'll fill that out and say, hey, this contractor is going to be coming to work on my house. In the past, it's been all over the place, but now it's going to be a lot simpler to do things. Everybody's afraid to leave their house because they know they probably going to have a hard time getting back. So that should never be the case. It always should be, once this town is safe and ready to run, then whoever's in the car with you when you come back, as long as you have proper ID, they can come on this island with you. And that's what's been the hassle and confusion in the past. No more of that. It's going to be simple. You'll be able to know what's going on. This council will communicate with you. I've done it in the past on social media to make sure everybody could get back to dialing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. DeFeo, what do you see as the council's role in preparing for and reacting to hurricanes and other severe weather events?
The town council sets policy. So I think as far as emergency plans and responses to that, it's the role of the council to make sure that those emergency plans are viable, kept up to date, as we have each hurricane go through, to make sure that we deal with lessons learned and make sure those changes are incorporated, make sure communications plans are in place, so that we're going to be able to ensure the people that they're going to be safe when they come back on the island. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Cutler, what do you see as the town council's role in preparing for and reacting to hurricanes and other severe weather events?
The council's role at this point is to make a plan that is going to work. We see that that did not work. That was painfully obvious after Florence. And what I never want to have to happen is for someone to make a decision not to leave in a major storm threatening us because they're afraid they can't get back on, and that is starting to happen. And I think that that is putting more people in danger than anything else, because I know I didn't leave this time either because I was afraid I could not get back on. I was extremely unhappy with what happened after Florence, and that's going to be fixed. That's my first priority, to make sure the reentry process is fair, it's clear, and it's expedited.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Royal, ask you to respond. What do you see as the town council's role in preparing for and reacting to hurricanes and other severe weather events?
The town council approves the official plan for hurricane preparation, evacuation, reentry, and recovery, and they budget funds to cover that. We do need to learn from recent experiences and to update and continue to monitor and update that plan and make sure that our citizens know what that plan is, and have public information meetings, particularly after recent storms, but now more importantly, at the beginning of the year, we have new people that come in each year, and they don't know what to do. They've never been in that situation before. We need I think a reentry system with decals that says who can come when, so that you can get contractors in here to help with your trying to repair and preserve your property, and that everybody's clear on what to do when water and sewer gets turned off, those kinds of basic things that we all need to be well educated about and know in advance.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Blaylock, what do you see as the town council's role in preparing for and reacting to hurricanes and other severe weather events?
Well, because of my background, I got two words for you: public safety. That's the very first priority. Now, I think we've learned, as has been mentioned before, we've learned from what's happened. The system may not be perfect, but we're getting there. But you can't just throw the gates open and let everybody come back on anytime they want to. It doesn't work that way. Somebody will get hurt, or you may let the wrong people back on. We've had that happen before too. So we're working hard to prepare the system so that it's easier to get back on, but it's not going to be an open door. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bell, what do you see as the town council's role in preparing for and reacting to hurricanes and other severe weather events?
Town council's role is to set the policy and make a plan for evacuating and letting you back on the island. It's our staff's job to implement those plans and those policies. I've been here since 1982, and I've been through a lot of hurricanes, both as a town employee and as a citizen. It's not always as it seems. When somebody said earlier something about people needed to get back over here to get their medication, there wasn't anything open. The streets were not cleaned. The staff couldn't even get out there if staff had allowed the citizens back on at that time. When you came back, there would have been no way for you to go around. You couldn't go to the bank. You couldn't go eat. You couldn't go to the grocery store. You couldn't get there. And every single hurricane is different. It either hits this side or it hits this side, and you never know which way it's going to go. So I think that we do look at our policy after every hurricane, and we implement new policies for the things that went wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Blaylock, I'd like to see if you would respond first to the next question, sir. During the summer months, many people visit Oak Island on any given day, short and long-term renters along with day trippers. The question, sir, what are your plans for town parking in the future, specifically beach parking? And please address in your answer paid parking, resident decals, and handicap parking.
Thank you, John.
I'm only reading what's on the page, sir. Don't blame the messenger.
Okay, let's talk about paid parking a little bit, okay? My background is 50 years of law enforcement. This is a logistical nightmare, a paid parking situation, because we're not like Southport. We don't have a nice little town laid out. We have all these street ends, and you got to cover them, okay? Somebody's got to write the ticket. Somebody's got to handle the money. All this does. I would support paid parking if you can show me the money. I mean, we had bids that came in the last time. It was the company was going to make $500,000. We were going to make $50,000. No, it doesn't work that way. And you have a lot of considerations with paid parking, and I just don't see it working right now. Is that it?
Thank you, sir.
You got any other ones for me? Okay, thanks.
Mr. Weinkoff? Visitors come to Oak Island, short and long-term renters in the summer months along with day trippers. The question is, what are your plans for town parking in the future, specifically beach parking? And if you would please address paid parking, resident decals, and handicap parking.
Well, we've been down the road of paid parking. I don't want to go down that road anymore. We don't have enough parking spaces for our residents, and they need to be able to park closer to the beach. It's their beach. They pay the taxes. They pay to keep up this beach. We need to expand the areas where residents can park, and we need to do it with the decals. That should be the #1 priority we do this fall, is expand everything. We're going to have more visitors coming to our town. We're not that hidden little gem we used to be. Everybody knows how great we are right now. So they're coming, and they're coming all over the place. We just got to manage the parking the way it should be. We can't have people parking all over the place in people's yards and tearing them up. People work hard for their yards. A lot of it's town right away, but still they work hard to keep that up. So we got to do a better job of trying to manage it, trying to get the ordinances back in place where you can sort of protect yourself, and there's no good answer. I mean, this place, if you've seen it July 4th, you can't get nowhere. We've made changes through ordinances. We put no parking signs up because one of the main issues I had was there was a road you could not get down to the end of the beach if somebody needed medical assistance or there was a fire. And that should be #1 to safety in the town of Oak Island.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Royal, what are your plans for town parking in the future, specifically beach parking? And if you would please address in your answer paid parking, resident decals, and handicap parking.
No more paid parking proposals. Our unique system of public beach access is fundamental to the character of our town and our way of life, and it shouldn't be for sale to anybody for any reason, for any amount of money at any time. The decal system that we have, I started that in 2008, and with the intention of continuing to expand it to include about half of our parking spaces. I'd like to see us get back to expanding that for our residents. Handicap parking, we need more of it. We do have added one new handicap parking or handicap access. The access has to be accessible for handicap to the beach if we're going to have handicap parking there. And we need to do a better job of that for our retirement community.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Defio, what are your plans for town parking in the future, specifically beach parking? And if you would address, please, paid parking, resident decals, and handicap parking.
Well, certainly with paid parking, I think we ought to put that to rest. That had originally been offered as a method to generate revenue to help pay for beach nourishment. That clearly is not going to work, particularly unless we can somehow generate another 5,000 or 6,000 parking spots on the island or close to the island. But short of some viable plan that comes along, a new model that we haven't seen before, let's kill it for now. The decal system, I think, I mean, we have a system that's working today, and all the residents know there's 200 spots that's reserved for them. If they get them, fine. If they don't, they have to find another spot. We've lived with that all this time. And I think until we can figure out a better way of dealing with parking on the beach, let's just keep it the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bell, what are your plans for town parking in the future, specifically beach parking? And if you would please address paid parking, resident decals, and handicap parking.
I am not for paid parking. I've never been for paid parking. I wasn't for paid parking in 2016 when I ran. I think that we've done a wonderful job of clearing the right-of-ways. If you went down last summer and looked compared to some of the summers before, you don't have as many people parking in the right-of-way. That's thanks to our police department, who's doing a wonderful job of enforcement. I do think that the decal system is a wonderful system. I would not even be opposed to charging a higher fee and having more resident parking spaces. Handicapped parking spaces, we do need more of those. And I think I had asked the town manager earlier, I think we are up to 1,302 parking spaces. The biggest reason the paid parking will never, ever work is because you pay taxes, and if we give the residents and the taxpayers free parking, then there's nobody to pay for parking. Because you're going to expect, if you have free parking, you're going to expect to have a parking space when you go down. And we all know that's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Cutler, what are your plans for town parking in the future, specifically beach parking? Please address paid parking, resident decals, and handicap parking in your answer.
Didn't I already go? No. Okay, I do not want to think about paid parking anymore at all. Please do not make me think about this or think of how to do it. The decal system works. I really like to see people take their old ones off and not have brown, green, blue, yellow, blue, purple. I don't even know what's going on some years. I don't want to have paid parking at all. That was never my idea as far as that. And it's not going to work without the right-of-ways being cleared, as I emphasized before. So I would like to never hear about that again for the next 4 years at all. As far as the decal system, I think that's going to tie in with the hurricane reentry anyway, which that would be great. And I want more parking places for residents only. Like I said, without the right-of-way parking, I think sometimes the paid parking issue comes up from frustrated homeowners on the beach and on Ocean Drive who are just tired of everybody parking in their yard. And there is parking for people. Generally, the renters have a place to park. It's called their driveway and under their house. So there is a lot of places to park, and they walk to the beach. But we have our places, and we just don't want people parked in people's yards. That's where usually that problem comes up. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Cutler, I'm going to ask you to stay right there and respond first to the next question. Several people submitted questions about golf carts, pedestrian walkways, and bicycles versus car traffic as an issue for Oak Island. The question, ma'am, what are your ideas on how to address issues regarding the different types of transportation modes? And how would you move us in that direction?
I see golf carts riding the wrong way up sidewalks. I don't believe golf carts are supposed to be on the sidewalks at all, and we really need to look at that because somebody's going to get hurt. I don't know if people have been hurt before and people have been hit on their bicycles. We used to have bicycle signs on Beach Drive. I don't see them anymore, and people do need to pay attention to bicycles, riding, mopeds, motorcycles, all of this kind of stuff. Pedestrians expect that they're not looking. They're excited to be here like we're excited to live here. They're looking around. They're not looking where they're going. Watch out for people. And there's only so many things we can do as far as crosswalks because East Beach and West Beach are state roads and Oak Island Drive is a state road. So we just need to put more of those pedestrian signs and the bicycle signs back up, I think. And the golf cart, really the education, come on, you know, drive them like you're supposed to. I think we know what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be riding them on sidewalks, but everybody has golf carts that I've seen, and I kind of fancied maybe just having only golf carts, but that's bald head. Anyway, so that's getting to be almost like that, though. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Royal, what were your ideas on how to address issues regarding transportation like golf carts, pedestrian walkways, and bicycles? And how would you move the town in that direction?
Golf carts are here to stay. We made a decision many years ago that they would be governed by the state laws for having golf carts on the roads, street legal golf carts. What we do need to do and can continue to do, we're supposed to be registering all those golf carts, and that's our opportunity and point of contact to educate people about what the law is and how that works out here in the town of Oak Island. I think for bicycles, repairing our streets would make biking and walking more enjoyable in this town. And so that is one thing that will accomplish several purposes, as well as traveling for golf carts. We're limited in what we can do with pedestrian crosswalks because of the process that the DOT has to go through. That's not to say that we don't work with DOT to see where we can start putting some crosswalks in some critical areas. We've had the bike lanes on Beach Drive. It'd be nice to have them in other areas, but there may be some other priorities that take that funding. So.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Blaylock, what are your ideas on how to address issues regarding transportation modes like golf carts, pedestrian walkways, and bicycles? And how would you move the town in that direction?
I've been dealing with golf carts for a long time. And the problem with golf carts mostly as was mentioned before, is education. People don't know. They put their golf cart on their trailer and they bring it down here and they unload it and off they go. I've stopped golf carts where Grandma and Grandpa had 3 kids hanging off of the back of it. I mean, you just can't. And the best thing to do is educate and work with some of the property management companies. So when the people come to visit, that they know that. Someone suggested the other day, and I think it's a great idea. Let's put up some signs so that people understand. If you're on a street that's over 35 miles an hour, you can't drive that golf cart there. Mopeds the same way. I saw a guy the other day riding his moped down the sidewalk. Okay, the chief does a great job. He's out there, but it's tough. There's just a lot of them, a lot of stuff to deal with. But I think the educational process is the way to go. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bell, what are your ideas on how to address issues regarding transportation modes like golf carts, pedestrian walkways, and bicycles? And how would you move the town in that direction?
I think what some of the other ones have said about education is very, very important, starting with our rental companies. I think if we've also moving toward brochures outlining the laws and regulations for golf carts. If I had my way about it, a golf cart would not be allowed on Oak Island Drive. And I'm not saying to go across the street. I'm just saying, especially in the summertime, our police department does a wonderful job of trying to stop them, tell them what is against the law and what's not. I think if some of the golf cart rental companies were more aware of the laws, and they would transfer those to the people who are renting. Bicycles, I love the bike path. Like Dara said, I'm not sure that the funding is there to put them anywhere else. I think enforcement and education is the key.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Weinkauf, what are your ideas on how to address issues regarding transportation modes like golf carts, pedestrian walkways, and bicycles, and how would you move the town in that direction?
Well, golf carts have been here for a while. I think what we need to do, because I was reading some emails the other day, and someone's getting ready to move down here, and they've got a low-speed vehicle, and they looked everywhere what the rules were. I think we got to come up and get more creative on our websites where we can put a set of rules on there when somebody wants to look for something. It's easy to access, and they can find out exactly what they need to know. That should be one of our main priorities we work on. The other thing is, when we tried to do the new road, Oak Island Drive, we asked for a bicycle path. Well, we got turned down because they said the project was already started. We've asked for crosswalks. We've got turned down on that. We've been told there's grants that we can apply for to be able to add sidewalks down in Yopon to give people more walking spaces down through there. And also, I think we need to approach DOT again and try to get more bicycle paths on these state roads so people have a place to walk or people have a place to ride their bikes where it's safe for them to be off the road.
Thank you, sir. Mr. DeFeo, I'd like your response, sir. What are your ideas on how to address issues regarding transportation modes like golf carts, pedestrian walkways, and bicycles? And how would you move the town in that direction?
All right, as far as bike paths are concerned, I seem to recall a year or so ago where the town did pass or approve a plan. I think it might have been a county plan for a bike path. So I think that is our future. As far as pedestrian walkways, I'd like to see us extend the sidewalks wherever possible. You know, down on Ocean Drive and Yacht, it might be difficult because those are state roads, but wherever possible to extend that. As far as the low-speed vehicles, the golf carts, communication, the way everybody's been pointing out already, is critical. But probably just as critical is enforcement. If you enforced the laws on the low-speed vehicles, it's not going to take more than 2 or 3 times for the word to get on to everybody that you know what roads you're allowed to drive on, how fast you can drive, and who's allowed to drive them. Those are treated just like any car. They have to be licensed, inspected. The drivers have to be licensed. No 10, 12-year-old kids are allowed to drive those things. So enforcement is just as critical as communication.
Thank you, sir. Mr. DeFeo, I'm going to ask you to stay there, please, and respond first to the next question. What do you see as the most immediate capital improvement projects needed in Oak Island, and what are your suggestions on how to pay for them?
I would think our streets, our side streets, probably are the most critical issues that we have to deal with. And I think we already have mechanisms in place to deal with that. We regularly, on an annual basis, get funding from the state that's earmarked for the streets. We have a project that's currently going on right now that's about 80% complete. I'm sure everybody's seen paving being done on a bunch of the side streets. There's 39 streets that were earmarked on this current plan. And like I said, it's 80% done. My understanding is that the town has adopted a cycle, a 3-year cycle for addressing the streets. We get approximately $300,000 a year from the state. It's earmarked for that. And my understanding is every 3 years that we do have a survey completed to target critical streets, get a contractor to work on it and all that, and fix those streets. So I think 3-year cycle to me that sounds like a workable plan.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Cutler, what do you see as the most immediate capital improvement projects in Oak Island? And what are your suggestions on how to pay for the improvements?
As far as the immediate need, I see that they've started picking up lawn debris. That's great. Mine got picked up Friday. That needs to be looked at. I've been looking at some of the equipment and the budget. So I think some small improvements can be already made as soon as we hit the ground running with that, and then budget in for public works to be kind of to the point where you don't hear us talking about the fire department anymore, because there was a council member, Danny Kaiser, who made sure we didn't have to worry about that anymore. I would like public works to be what I leave behind as really having been built to where it needs to be. As far as capital improvements now, I think the rec center, we don't want that to get to the point where the old police department was, where it was moldy and falling down. We don't want stuff to get so far, so we need to make repairs on that to keep it going. It's embarrassing to go in there, bathrooms aren't where, this is just a mess. So the rec center, everybody uses that. We need to do something about the rec center, get it fixed up, and then we're going to rebuild it. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Bell, what do you see as the most immediate capital improvement projects in the Oak Island area? And what are your suggestions on how to pay for them?
How to pay for them is the biggest issue without raising taxes. I think beach renourishment is probably one of our biggest projects coming up. I would be in favor of taxing districts where as close proximity you are to the ocean, you would pay a higher tax, of course. We also need to start planning and saving for our recreation department, of course. And the side streets, we'll have our debt service paid off in a year and a half. So we can earmark that money to hopefully keep taxes low. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Blaylock, what do you see as the most immediate capital improvement projects in Oak Island? And what are your suggestions on how to pay for the improvements?
My major concern would be stormwater runoff. When I returned after the hurricane, I saw water in people's yards knee deep, so forth and so on. I inquired about one of the guys out there digging a hole in the ground. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm getting the water out of that yard over there." And I said, "Okay, where does it go from there?" And he says, "Well, it goes down the street." I said, "And from there?" He says, "Well, you see all those cuts in the streets?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's the sewer." I said, "I know that." He said, "Every time they cut the storm drain." So the water had no place to go. So my main concern would be, let's go back and revisit that. Let's go back and reestablish that system that we had that did work and go from there, because I really believe that another emergency similar to what we had, a lot of the damage could be avoided. The emergency vehicles can respond, so forth and so on. So my thing is stormwater. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Weinkoff, what do you see as the most immediate capital improvement projects, and what are your suggestions on how to pay for them?
There's a couple. The roads are one, and these roads have been that way since I've been here in this office. The problem was in the past, we went over and just repaved. We never fixed the problem. Now the problem's getting fixed. We've hired staff in-house. We bought the equipment to go out and start tackling these roads and making proper repairs on these roads. Second thing is this stormwater. When I came back after Florence, I was going to house with people whose yards were flooding, trying to help them. And a lot of problems we found was they had stormwater and drains coming off their lots, but the sewer system cut it all. Nobody responded when it got cut. So I made it a point to make sure if we did the damage, we need to make the repairs. So they started making repairs to the houses that the lines got cut, and the last storms we've had, they've had no flooding in their houses. So we've got to tackle the issues that we've got at hand. To be able to pay for this stuff, I made a promise when I came into office that I would no longer get any capital project underway until we paid this debt off. Next year, the debt's paid off. and we need to look at our rec center. But we need to, like I said, do it smart. Every town around us applies for grants and gets them to be able to do things, and we need to follow that lead.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Royal, what do you see as the most immediate capital improvement projects in Oak Island, and what are your suggestions on how to pay for them?
First is street maintenance. The 2018 Street Pavement Condition Survey identified $2.6 million in immediate resurfacing and high priority routine maintenance needs. That was nearly 2 years ago. In March, Council did fund 40% of that. We can't wait every 3 years and let our streets continue to deteriorate. It's going to cost us more in the long run. We need to have an annual program where we supplement with fund balance the PAL bill funds that we do get. Second is stormwater. We've taken some steps in that direction. We weren't even clearing the drains, the drainage ditches that we have, much less addressing the issues with the pipes that were cut. We're beginning to do that. We need to do more with it. The stormwater fee has been increased. We'll see how far that goes and where we are. The third thing is the rec center. We don't need to wait until the debt's paid off to start planning for that. We need to do that now with the funds that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Bell, I would like to ask you to respond first to the next question, if I may, and it's about growth. It's causing many trees on Oak Island to be removed, creating erosion and flooding issues. The question, do you have any ideas on how to address or diminish the tree removal issues in town?
This council has passed a tree ordinance, whereas they can only remove so many trees. There has to be so many left according to the size of the lot. This is always, our tree coverage has always been very, very, very important to most of the residents on Oak Island. But then you get into property rights. If somebody has bought a lot and they've paid for it for years and years and years, and then they move down here and they want to build a house just like you have. So for you to come in there and tell them that they can't clear their lot or they can't build the size house that they've wanted to for all those years, then you're messing with their property rights. So this council has tried to address this many times. We've done several studies. We have increased the amount of trees that have to be left on the lot. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Blaylock, do you have any ideas on how to address or diminish the tree removal issues in Oak Island?
Well, it's called Oak Island for a reason, and it's not Palm Island for all you people who like to plant palm trees. And sorry, I was born here, so anyway, the issue with the trees, I was very concerned about that, and I was discussing it with one of the contractors one day, and he invited me out to a site to see what was required for the stormwater runoff. Well, by the time you built the house and put in the stormwater runoff system, there was no place to put a tree. So one of the things I think we need to do is get a hold of Raleigh and inform Raleigh that our soil and the soil in Raleigh is not the same. There must be a different percolation system or whatever the scientists call it, but there's got to be a way to do it. And replanting the trees, you know, we need to replant, but we also want to replant what's native, indigenous to our island. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Weinkauf, do you have any ideas on how to address or diminish the tree removal issues in Oak Island?
Well, Charlie hit it right on the head. The state's been our problem. They mandate the rules that we have to follow, and the rules are they have to install stormwater for their houses. I give staff a lot of credit because the rules that they first brought down to us was a lot stricter. It would mean that almost every lot would be clear-cutted, but staff fought back, and then they came back with a new set of rules. But they're still too strict for our island. Trees soak up stormwater too. And Raleigh needs to see that. Their rules that they have where they're at doesn't fit every town. And we need to be able to talk Raleigh into it, and voices make everybody listen. We need to be able to keep our trees on our island. And we've toughened the ordinances so we can keep the trees here, but it's still not enough trees. They're still having to be taken out. So until we can change Raleigh's mind, they tie our hands. They tie our hands on a lot of things we try to do. So my suggestion would be go out to Raleigh. Get every one of our senators, get our House members, and let them know, fight for us. And that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, sir. Mr. DeFeo, do you have any ideas on how to address or diminish tree removal issues in town?
Well, number one, I agree with everything that Charlie and Jeff said. We do need to address the stormwater issues with the state, get that changed. But we have what we have in place. We have the tree ordinances. I've had developers come up and talk to me and say, you know, how terrible it is on trying to build a house. That what they'll do is put a tree in, get the CO, and then advise the homeowner to remove the tree if they want, because the town's not going to do anything. I've seen lots just cleared, stripped, nothing's done. So to me, the deal with the things that we have today, it's enforcement again. We can't accept the fact that our staff saying, oh, we can't enforce it after we give the CO. Yes, you can. All you have to do is have the will to do it, have the resources to do it. And again, once the word gets out that the town's enforcing this, it'll stop. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Cutler, do you have any ideas on how to address or diminish tree removal issues in town?
Thank you. This came up when I was on the Board of Adjustment for 3 years, and what we actually had was a situation where a homeowner was trying to put in a driveway for his garage and could not put it where our ordinances were so strict that they had to cut down 12 oak trees in order to do that. They had to pay $350 to get a Board of Adjustment variance. So I think in cases like that where homeowners are trying to save their trees, either it needs to be an easier process or something where if they get their variance and they get their money back, because that seemed like a lot of money to pay, and their goal was to try to save their live oaks down in Yopon. So our ordinances do have purpose, but when they are not helping the homeowner do what they want to do as far as preserving our canopy, which is critical. Once those trees are down, a little thin tree is not going to really replace it. So that's something that we could really look at as far as our ordinances are concerned. If there's an exception because of the trees of where to put their driveway, then I think it needs to make some sense. So I did that. I think that's something that can be done also. And also holding the building contractors responsible for at least putting something back. But let's look at what we have and try to keep those. They're a bigger deal than a sapling.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Royal, do you have any ideas on how to address or diminish tree removal issues in town?
We have been through so many different variations of tree preservation ordinances in the last 20 years. I think what we have in place now is something that we can build on. We do need to be more vigilant and require replacement trees to be native trees. But we need to also appreciate the role that existing developed property has in preserving our tree canopy. When we start redeveloping those properties, and that will happen, that will put more of our tree canopy at risk if we don't have the proper measures in place. Stormwater regulations conflict with what we're trying to do, and we need to continue to work to find ways to meet the state regulations in a way that will preserve our trees. And I think if we put our minds to it and focus on that, rather than throw up our hands, we can do that. It's important to maintain our tree canopy for our identity, for our future, for our quality of life. And together, I believe we can do that.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Royal, I'm going to ask you to stay there, if I can, please, and respond first to the next question. First part of the question is, have you reviewed the current town budget? Secondly, what do you see as its challenges and opportunities if you're elected to town council?
Yes, I have reviewed the town budget. I'm actually the only person who made any comments on the town budget at our public hearing back in June. I think we can do a better job of, and there have been some improvements in that in the year, a better job of laying out the budget so that the public better understands where the money's coming from and where it's going to. But there are local government accounting and budgeting processes and procedures in place that make it look the way that it does. But I think we can do a better job of explaining to our residents, summarizing, rather than expecting each one of us to go through line by line and try to figure out what's going on and where money's going to and what it's being spent on. And that's one of the things that I would like to see us do in the future.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Blaylock, question is, have you reviewed the current town budget, and what do you see as its challenges and opportunities if you're elected to town council?
Yes, I reviewed it. I think it's a great roadmap. It would be like saying to you, have you got a map of the United States? Yes, I do. Can you tell me where Pennsylvania is? Not necessarily, but I see that as, like I said, a roadmap to where the money's going. Unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be, I'm married to an accountant. She handles all the numbers and everything, so I have to have her explain it to me when she's doing it. And we have a tremendous gentleman over here who keeps me up to speed on the budget. And Mr. Weinkoff is a great asset to us. And also the town manager and the staff help me out in that regard, because if I have a question, I go and say, I understand the budget needs this. Is that correct? And they keep me straight on it, and if I don't agree, I don't agree. And then they explain to me there's a federal law that says you can't. So, but anyway, I'll promise you that I will look at it and I will do the best I can to keep it where it's supposed to be, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Defio, have you reviewed the current town budget, and what do you see as its challenges and opportunities if you're elected to town council?
Well, I have, and I've also attended a number of the budget forums, meetings that were held early last year. I don't have any problems with the budget. I think it's pretty sound. There's some things that, based on my background, I look and wonder why did we do that. But overall, I'm okay with what we have. I'm sorry. I'm just about done anyhow. So, here we go. Okay. Like I said, I'm okay with the way the budget is. I'm an old IT person. When I see something like $25,000 allocated for IT in the budget, I go, how can that be? We should be spending a lot more. I think, we should take a look at that kind of stuff. But overall, I'm okay with it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bell, have you reviewed the current town budget? What do you see as its challenges and opportunities if you are elected to town council?
Yes, I have, over and over and over and over. Our town staff does an excellent job. We are very blessed to have a town manager and a finance officer and a staff that backs them up. We have budget meetings where we go line item by line item by line item. I was very happy with the budget this year. We were able to lower the tax rate since the assessments went up so much. In the future, I would like to keep the tax rate at an affordable for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Cutler, have you reviewed the current town budget? And what do you see as its challenges and opportunities if you're elected to town council?
Thank you. I have looked at the town budget, and the challenge is going to be to have the staff to explain it all to me line for line. So that's why they have retreats. And I do see that there's a lot. This is a big thing, a lot of money. This is bigger than what most of us handle on a daily basis for sure. It's a huge business is how that needs to be looked at. So that's why we have a staff. I see that there's a fund balance. Whatever I don't know, I ask questions about. And I've been asking people, honestly, Dara, to explain some of this stuff to me because she's an excellent source, and I really, really, really appreciate her help with this as far as is there a way to move money around before the budget gets reapproved. And so there is to move some, and I think some of that little bit of money we need to do something with the rec center. We don't need to wait until next summer to do the budget. I wasn't even aware of that, so I really appreciate that help, and that's what I'm going to do. Find out what's going on. If I don't understand it, I'll ask somebody. I also don't want to raise the taxes because I'm a property owner and I don't want my taxes to go up. So I think our budget looks good from what I can generally understand, and I'm just going to understand more about it and keep it functioning so that we're fiscally responsible.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Weinkoff, have you reviewed the current town budget?
I have.
Okay.
And I go line item by line
I guess that's
item.
an inside the town joke. But,
And I
what do you
highlight.
see as its challenges and opportunities if you're elected to town council?
Well, 4 years ago, we challenged staff, cut your budgets. We've got to save money. We've got to be able to build our funds back up in case we do have a storm. Every year as we go through the budget, and I've done this every year I've been there, how close are we to paying something off? And if it's where we got the money to do it, my first thing is let's do it. Let's save the interest. Let's get that debt paid off. Let's move on to something else. Then I go back, and as we start doing open meetings with all our staff, and they want things in the capital budget, I look and say, do we have money right now where they can go ahead and get this? That will leave more money in the upcoming budget, and they won't need it then. That's the points I look at when I start doing budgets. I'm in management, I handle budgets, I handle million-dollar projects, and I look at how to save money. I'm the only one in our company in the last 50 years that did a $26 million project, and the contractor turned around at the end of the project and gave the company back $600,000. That's the kind of oversight that I bring to this position, and that's the kind of oversight I represent you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Weinkoff, I'm going to ask you to stay there, please, if you would, please. That ends the list of questions that the League of Women Voters have come up with, and now we're going to begin with our closing statements. Each one of our candidates will get 2 minutes for a close. And since we went in alphabetical order for the very first question, we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order this time. And we're going to begin with Town Council candidate Jeff Weinkoff. Mr. Weinkoff.
First of all, thank y'all for coming out. Huge crowd. A little nervous at the beginning, but I've got my feet under me now. But when I came into this position, I was always told by my parents, don't complain about something unless you're going to do something about it. So I decided I would run for office. I wanted to see the debt paid off. I wanted to see our reserve funds and our taxes kept low. I wanted to make sure that we had staffing to do the job. It was a long battle getting this town back to where it was strong. And I have stuck to my guns. Everything I have said I would do for you, I have done. I take this as a job. I work for you. I work for nobody else but you. I will always answer your calls. I will answer your emails. If I come out to your property, I'm going to find out what's wrong, and I'm going back to fight for you. I've always said when I've done something, it's residents first, and that's the way I take everything. My job where I work full-time, I take care of seniors. And I tell all my employees, whether they've been there with me for 10 years or they're brand new hires, whenever you go out do something, the residents paying the bill, you take care of them and make sure they're handled the way they should be. There should never be a problem. There should always be open communication, and that's what I've always done. I hit social media, and I get beat up a lot. But there's questions and answers that need to be answered on there. I represent you, and I always represent you, and I would appreciate if you would vote for me one more time. I would like to see this debt paid off. so we keep town strong and moving forward the way we have always planned for it to be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, for a 2-minute closing statement, we will go to Town Council candidate Dara Royal. Ms. Royal, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate you taking the time and the interest to listen to what we have to say and to make a decision about how you want the future of your town to go. I say let's invest our resources in people, equipment, projects to provide reliable services to you for enforcing our codes, maintaining our facilities, recovering from hurricanes, repairing our streets, draining the stormwater, collecting yard debris. Let's use the plans that we have to guide growth and development, our comprehensive land use plan and our unified development ordinance. Let's develop a real comprehensive 10-year capital improvement plan to do what needs to be done for our infrastructure and maintaining our facilities. I served on council for 10 years and have come back asking for your vote to put my knowledge and experience to work for you for another 4 years. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, for a 2-minute closing statement, we will go to Town Council candidate Michael Defio. Mr. Defio, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement, sir.
All right, thank you. I also want to thank everybody for coming tonight and encourage you to come out to all the council meetings. It would be wonderful to see this many people at the council meetings. That said, I just want to touch on growth again real quick. We are growing, as I said earlier. We're going to double our population shortly. We're eventually going to make it to 20,000. As far as our culture in the island's concerned, our small beach town, laid back, resident, tourist oriented, pet friendly, all those things that we love about the island are going to be at risk with this growth. Most of the population growth that we're going to be having over the next bunch of years are going to be on the mainland. And those folks are going to have different wants and needs than we do on the island. So we need to plan to make sure that what we want on the island is going to be preserved, as well as addressing the wants and needs of our new residents on the mainland. We have to look at how we represent them. How do we do that? We have, now we have the time to plan for it. And I think we have to really make that our top priority. The other thing I just want to mention, you got 6 great candidates here. And I think that what everybody needs to do is to look at each one of them and decide which one has the skills and the experience to lead us into the future. And those are the 3 people that you need to vote for, whichever one of us that you think it is. So again, thank you. And this has been painful, but it's been a pleasure. So thanks.
Thank you, sir. Next, for a 2-minute closing statement, we will go to candidate Nikki Cutler. Ms. Cutler, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Before I forget, I want to say I'm not doing signs in case you're like, there's nobody. No, we're not doing signs. I decided that in April when I went ahead and filed my paperwork the first day that we could. I knew I wanted to do this. I really enjoyed being on the Board of Adjustment, and I really, really think that I would do a good job on council. I'm actually, when I started in 2014 was the trash cart rollout service. That solved a huge problem on the beachfront where garbage was just all over the place forever. So that's been resolved, and I did that as a private business. However, I'm forever labeled as a trash lady, not really trying to do that. So since '92, I'm actually a piano teacher. I'm a concert artist. I came directly from orchestra rehearsal today. So with orchestra, as the pianist, I know that I hold together with the conductor the entire orchestra. And I am prepared. We have 24 symphony pieces to do this fall. So I know that study and hard work, and I know how to do it because I do it at home all the time. I would like to just also let you know that if you want to just Google Nikki Cutler Oak Island, you'll see things that maybe aren't being asked. There's other questions. Lots of great interviews and things have been done. So if you wanted to find out more, or you could just email me, that would also be great. Or see me. I see people driving around all the time. And what I see is people, when I'm working, I have houses on the trash service because I also still do that, from 58th to Kings Lynn, Montgomery to West Yacht. And I see people like you people walking your dogs, just want to live at home in peace and not have drama and that kind of things. So I feel like communication really is a strong point as far as staff, the town manager, and the council. I want to see that communication super improving and that communication conveyed to you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, for his 2-minute closing statement, we will go to Town Council candidate Charlie Blaylock. Mr. Blaylock, 2 minutes for your closing statement, sir.
I've been in public service for nigh on to 50 years. Dealt with a lot of things, a lot of issues. The most important thing was touched on before, and I mentioned it too. It's communication. It's letting you, the people that we work for, know what's going on, so that you can work together with us in a respectful way to solve the problems that we're all going to face. This is a beautiful place to live, and we have to, you cannot stop growth. You cannot do it. You have to manage it. And if you manage it and take care of it, you can keep that atmosphere that we've all been talking about. People say they wish they could have it the way it was. When I was a little kid, the road ended at 58th Street. So it's going to change. But I love this place. I love being with you guys. I'd loved being a cop for 15 years. And I will continue to do the best I can. I'll be available to you. And I'm asking for your vote. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. Next, for her 2-minute closing statement, Town Council candidate Sheila Bell. Ms. Bell, 2 minutes.
There's no way I can stand up here and talk for 2 minutes. I can sit with you and talk to you for hours on end, but I'm not a public speaker. I'm not much of a politician. I'm not going to stand up here and blow smoke and tell you that I can do this and I can do that, or make you promises I can't keep. It's a council. We're one vote. One vote. We don't always agree, but we fight it out. We take that vote and we move on to the next issue. I was a tax collector, worked in local government for 25 years. I was in customer service. That's what I want to do for you for the next 4 years. That's what I've tried to do for the last 4 years. I try to keep you informed. I'm the Facebook queen. When it comes to a storm, everything that comes out of town hall, I try to pass it on to you. Everybody says they want it the way it was 20, 30 years ago. Well, I'd like to be 20 or 30 years younger myself. But that's just not reality. It's like Charlie said, you are not going to stop growth. People are coming. They want what we have. We are lucky enough to live here. We're not going to stop it. We can only manage it. We can plan for it, and we can hope for the best. I really do appreciate all of you coming, and I wish to see more of you at the town council meetings. I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please help me thank Sheila Bell, Charlie Blaylock, Nikki Cutler, Michael Defio, Dara Royal, and Jeff Weinkamp. And don't forget Election Day, Tuesday, November the 5th, but early voting starts tomorrow in North Carolina. Barbara, would you like to say anything else before we leave? Good night, everybody. Thank you.